Imagine a world where the most devastating weapons don't make a single sound, where national borders are crossed in milliseconds, and where the next major conflict is won not just by troops on the ground, but by the algorithms guiding them. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the future of defense, specifically looking at India's strategic and technological shift. If you want to grasp modern geopolitical power, you absolutely have to understand how tech is completely rewriting the rules of national security. So let's jump right in.
Here's our roadmap for the briefing. We're going to cover the new face of warfare, the major defense technology shift, India's push for self-reliance, the export success story, critical challenges ahead, and we'll wrap up with a final revision and takeaways to lock it all in.
First up, the new face of warfare. We're living through a dramatic paradigm shift right now. The 20th century rules of engagement, they're practically obsolete. So I want you to consider this. What actually happens when warfare moves from the physical dirt of a battlefield into algorithms and the electromagnetic spectrum? Well, this is the reality of modern hybrid warfare. It's invisible, it's incredibly lethal, and it requires a completely new strategic mindset from the ground up. To really get this, we first need to define what defense technology even means today. Traditionally, it's the use of technology in military operations to protect national interests. Simple enough, right? But here is the crucial shift. We are moving rapidly away from a purely human-centric approach. With things like advanced hybrid warfare, the technology isn't just a tool in a soldier's hand anymore. The machine itself is becoming the primary decision-maker.
Let's break down how this builds across the 5 domains of warfare. Think of this as the evolution of human conflict. We started on land, mostly limited by foot or mechanized access. Then, we conquered the sea for power projection. The invention of airplanes opened up the air domain for deep reach. More recently, space became the 4th arena, which is absolutely vital for surveillance and navigation. But the modern game changer, that's the 5th domain, cyber, and the electromagnetic spectrum, or EMS. What makes cyber and EMS so incredibly unique is that they interact with digital targets across all the other domains. If you disable a nation's cyber infrastructure, while their land, sea, air, and space capabilities can be instantly paralyzed.
Moving on to point 2, the defense technology shift.
To understand these multi-domain operations, we need to look at the specific tools driving this new era. It's a stark contrast between the past and the near future. On one side, we have conventional technology. Your tanks, artillery, fighter jets, and naval vessels. These have been the traditional backbone of military strategy. But the future? That's all about emerging technology. We're talking about hypersonic missiles, autonomous robotics, and the Internet of Military Things. It's a massive shift from sheer explosive force to blistering speed and networked intelligence.
Let's ground this with some real-world examples. Artificial intelligence is now actively interpreting video feeds for drone strikes. Take the US Army's Project Maven, for instance. Then you have hypersonic missiles like Russia's Kinzhal, moving at Mach 5, that's 5 times the speed of sound, making traditional defense systems almost completely useless. We're also seeing the Internet of Military Things, where unmanned drones are networked together for ultimate situational awareness. Robotics are stepping in to keep soldiers out of harm's way, like the Mule system procured by the Indian Army. And of course, stealth tech, like the radar evasion on the F-22 Raptor, making vehicles practically invisible. This isn't just a minor upgrade, folks. It's a total replacement of the old baseline for global power.
Number 3. India's push for self-reliance.
So how does a nation secure itself in the middle of this crazy technological shift? The answer is a massive, systemic push for self-reliance. You simply can't be a global power if you rely on other nations for your critical tech. Looking at the timeline, the foundation of India's defense industrial base was actually laid back in the 1940s. But the real modern transformation? That accelerated in June 2021 when the Legacy Ordnance Factories Board was corporatized into 7 separate defense public sector undertakings, or DPSUs. This was a huge structural reform. Fast forward to today, and the driving force is Atmanirbhar Bharat, or Self-Reliant India. This is taking physical shape right now through dedicated defense industrial corridors in Uttar Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, built to be hubs for R&D and manufacturing.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how the government has engineered a complete policy matrix to force this indigenization. Think of this like a machine where every gear has a very specific job. The Defense Production and Export Promotion Policy provides the overarching framework to boost manufacturing. Then you have the Technology Development Fund, which acts as the financial fuel for Indian R&D. The strategic partnership model brings in foreign expertise through joint ventures, but perhaps the boldest move? The positive indigenization lists. This is essentially the government legally banning the import of certain items, basically forcing domestic industry to step up and build them.
Combine all that with liberalized foreign direct investment to encourage tech transfer, and you've got a comprehensive system designed to break the cycle of import dependency.
Number 4, the export success story.
And here is the incredible part. These systemic policies are actually working. We're seeing a very real economic impact. In the 2022 to 2023 fiscal year, India's defense exports hit an all-time historic milestone of about 16,000 crore. India is now officially counted among the top 25 countries that export defense equipment. They're expanding their global footprint, shipping hardware to Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. This is a profound shift from being purely one of the world's largest arms importers to emerging as a truly competitive global exporter.
Number 5. Critical challenges ahead.
However, we have to look at the whole picture here. While those export numbers are a fantastic achievement, true strategic analysis means confronting the ground reality. There are still serious bottlenecks. And the first major bottleneck is financial. In the 2024 to 2025 budget, the defense allocation was roughly $75 billion. Now that sounds like a massive amount of money, but it actually represents just 1.9% of the gross domestic product. Modernizing an entire military to compete in the era of AI and hypersonics takes staggering amounts of capital, and that 1.9% puts a very real ceiling on how fast that modernization can happen.
This financial constraint bumps right up against a harsh geopolitical reality. The urgent strategic necessity for India right now is achieving technological parity, especially to match adversaries like China. To do this, India can't just buy the tech. It has to urgently absorb and domestically produce these niche technologies. It's quite literally a matter of immediate national security. But systemic hurdles are still standing in the way.
And that brings us to the specific limitations that still need to be dismantled. Despite the massive push for Atmanirbhar Bharat, there is still a persistent import dependence for truly critical tech, things like jet engines and advanced air defense systems. On top of that, the R&D ecosystem is still relatively weak, characterized by a low density of researchers compared to global leaders. The industry also relies way too heavily on capital-intensive government PSUs. But perhaps the most frustrating hidden challenge here? The red tape and foreign lobbies that end up choking innovative Indian MSMEs and startups. These smaller companies have the groundbreaking ideas, but they struggle against the bureaucracy to actually secure the government orders they need to survive and scale.
And finally, number 6, our final revision and takeaways.
All right, we've covered a ton of ground today, moving from the theory of modern warfare to the gritty realities of industrial policy. Let's lock in your conceptual mastery with a quick, high-energy recap. First, warfare has fundamentally shifted to 5 multi-domain operations: land, sea, air, space, and cyber/EMS. Second, emerging tech like AI, hypersonics, and the Internet of Military Things are actively replacing conventional human-centric tactics. Third, Atmanirbhar Bharat is using tools like the Technology Development Fund, strategic partnerships, and positive indigenization lists to aggressively drive indigenization. Fourth, this has led to a historic 16,000 crore export milestone in 2022-23. But finally, serious limitations remain. Specifically budget limits at 1.9% of GDP and startup red tape, which continue to hinder true parity with adversaries.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We know the startups have the innovation, and we know the future of warfare is digital, invisible, and incredibly fast. So the ultimate question is this: can India's defense ecosystem eliminate the bureaucratic red tape holding back its most innovative minds before the next era of algorithmic warfare completely takes over? The answer to that question will likely determine the balance of power in the region for decades to come. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the big questions and keep learning.